All right, there you have it. The renewed hope appropriation bill has been presented there. 27.5 trillion naira. That's the projected expenditure. Estimated revenue 18.32 trillion naira. Joining us now is Mr. Bismarck Rewane, CEO, Financial Derivatives Company. Great to have you again, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's the morning after, the presentation, and I'm sure it's lived up to the hype,
yes,
at this point. And before we get into it, I remember one of the arguments for taking out fuel subsidy was to relieve pressure on our revenue.
Yes.
Subsidy is gone.
Yes.
But at this time, we're still seeing a huge deficit there, 9 trillion. What do you think?
No, you've got to look at it relatively. The budget deficit last year was over 6% of GDP. You're bringing it down to 4% of GDP. I think that is remarkable. You must give credit. In any case, the budget was crafted by Mr. Budget himself. Ben Akagweze has been on it, so you don't get better than that. So in terms of its crafting, in terms of its direction, in terms of the goals, I think there's no doubt about the fact that a good job was done, right? But
so if the subsidy was still there,
then you would have been at 7%, if not 8% of GDP.
Of GDP.
Yeah, but the comfort zone for regional integration in most parts of the world is 3% of GDP, right? So you've gone from 6% of GDP to 4%. Moving directionally, you're okay, but the target is to make it go that way. If you didn't have this, when you say subsidies, first of all, subsidies have not gone. Subsidies have been reduced. But the subsidies are not just in PMS and petrol, but they're also in the exchange rate. So you've taken part of that and taken part of this, and then you begin to do other things. But we'll get to that. What's my understanding of the budget? The budget basically is a financial plan. And like the slides will show you, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail.
Right.
All right, so that's one. Two is that you address how much have you earned, or how much you project. First of all, how much you project to spend, how much you project to earn, what's the deficit, how do you fund the deficit, and as a tool of economic management becomes a critical issue. So let's take it, what are the basic assumptions of this budget? Assumption number one, first of all, you want to grow at 3.67, I think, which is higher than the rate of population growth. But if you actually put this in the context of what the president wants to accomplish, a $1 trillion economy in 8 years, which means that you should be growing at about almost 8%. Your projected growth rate this year is half of what your goals are. So there's still work to be done in terms of making people realize that this is a very steep hill to climb, right? And I do not think that you're going to get to 8% growth this year. As a matter of fact, if you get 4%, that's fair enough. Assumption number two is that inflation will be at about 21%, right? I think that's achievable. Inflation today is about 27, 28. In the month of December, it will go up slightly, right? So if you can achieve 21% at the end of next year, then I think that's achievable. There's no doubt about it.
21%, even though it's still a really high
number. But you are 30. If you can bring it down to 21%, you've done a lot.
That's fantastic.
Oh yeah. So
can't wait for that to happen.
And also, you have to understand what is the exchange rate assumption. There are two major assumptions when we have to talk about it. The exchange rate assumption is that it's at 750 naira to a dollar. Today, the naira is trading at about 1,150. Okay, so you have a long way to go. Is it achievable? I'm sure that you will move towards your purchasing power parity value, which is about almost 800, right? But it takes time, and you have to do a lot of work. In other words, you have to restructure your foreign exchange market. You have to have an open auction system. You have to move all the cobwebs so that people are not gaming the system. Because there's part of it gaming, part of it short supply, part of it restrictions. So you got to do all of this to make the exchange rate come into what we call the real effective exchange rate path. You need to. There's work to be done, but that's part of the monetary policy functions, which comes out of the central bank, and right. as far as fiscal policies are concerned, let us look at the budget itself. It has grown. The amount to be spent has grown by 25%.
It never comes down, really.
No, that's fine. The higher, the better. But it's what you do with the money,
right,
and the impact it has on the people. But if you dollarize and you put this budget in, if you convert it to dollars, the actual amount spent is 14% less than what was spent 2 years ago. So in reality, we are working our way down the ladder of success, right?
But how is currency devaluation playing into all of that?
No, because there's a potential, because when you are comparing countries, you're not going to be comparing Naira with Rand and Cedi. You've got to bring it to a standard.
Right.
And so when you look at budgets all over the world, they compare them and they grow. But in Nigeria, actually, this is only federal, right? There are state activities. So when you add the state activities, which come to about 48% or 46% of total budget. So let us double it and say that 27 trillion times 2, let's say 50 trillion or 51 trillion is the total spend. Your GDP is has about 230 trillion. The government expenditure alone is not going to move the needle. You need private investment, and private investment is a function of confidence. Confidence is a function of clarity, right, and coming clean. So you need to get this done. And the two investment multipliers, that is government investment multiplier and private sector investment multiplier, will have a multiplier effect on outcomes, that is GDP. And the GDP is driven by two major things. One, injections, which money that comes in and optimal use of that injection. And two, leakages, money that goes out. If the leakages are more than the injections, then you have a negative outcome. And so leakages, genuine leakages and unofficial leakages. So that's something else. But the reality is that the budget as a tool of economic management, if you look at it over the past years, in the last 3 years, and we'll take it one by one, we said we will grow at 4.2. We actually grew at 3.25. We said we will grow last year at 3.75. We grew at 2.54. Right? We said the oil price will be 57. The actual oil price was 98. We said the oil price will be 75. The actual oil price was 83. But this year, we are using $77 as our benchmark price. $77, you know that Brent today is at 80, right? What you normally do in a plan like this is to say you give yourself enough headroom. You can't be that optimistic. Even on the day of the OPEC meeting, when we are squabbling about output cuts. So let us assume that the price drops sharply because something happens to $74 a barrel. And your benchmark price for the year is at 77. You are already underwater.
So should we be going towards 60?
Yes, you must give yourself at least $15 room, right? And dampen the appetite of your legislators and everybody. Don't create a crisis of false expectation, because people begin to get excited for no reason. This economy is in a fragile state. So we need to focus and make sure that we come clean to the people. I think that is one of the key elements.
Key things. But looking at the 10th Assembly, at this time, now it's been presented.
Yes.
What are you expecting?
Well, turkeys don't vote for Christmas. So I think you are throwing blood into a sea of sharks.
Right.
So if they take 77, they will say, okay, let's make it 80 or 81. Right? If you say you want to spend 27 trillion, they'll say, let's spend 30 trillion. There's no harm in that, but how are you going to fund it, and what is the impact going to be? Look, and I was talking about the budget as a tool of economic management, not just balancing books. Look, the exchange rate target in 2022 was 410. You know the actual exchange rate that year? 740. You can't have a variance of 100% in any budget. Then it gets better and interesting. In 2023, the budget, last year when President Buhari was announcing the budget, his exchange rate assumption was 435. You know what? We closed the year at 1,158. We are 300% out variance. So here we are at 750, right? I don't expect it to be too varied, but we should look at what history has taught us, because those who don't learn from history are bound to repeat the mistakes of the past, right?
So what would you say is the safe benchmark for the exchange rate at this point?
I would tend more towards, it's better to under-promise and overachieve, right? I would tend more towards something
maybe like
much
1,000 number.
No, I'm not going to, because the media will carry that.
Right.
Mr. Rewane said it, 1,000. So I would tend more towards where the market is trading. But if you reform the system and have an auction system, quite frankly, I won't be surprised if it comes down to about 800, 850, about that.
Yeah, we've also got projections for December from JP Morgan. I think they were looking at about 850 for December.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I'm just, I'm speculating.
Exactly.
I'm saying that it could come.
But Mr. Rewane, another major issue, right now, we've racked up a lot of debt in the last couple of years, and this government is still going to go borrowing. No,
I think Mr. Waledu said no.
He said no borrowing, but let's just hopefully we don't have to go borrowing.
If beggars, if wishes were horses, beggars will ride.
Right.
The reality is that, one, you must reschedule your existing debt. You must reschedule. You must come to terms with your creditors. You must come to terms with your multilateral lenders to clean up this thing. They have the mental adjustment to make Nigerians realize that we're not a rich country and we can't be living like sheikhs and on borrowed money, right? So we now need to come clean, right? But to come clean means you have to be clean to come clean. He who comes to equity must come with clean hands. So I think that it's achievable, but there's hard work to be done. The hard work is more mental than fiscal, and I think we're on the path. There are a few people there that know what to do.
And also looking at this debt issue at this time, we've racked up a lot, and we've not seen that, when it comes to development. So I'm wondering in my mind, is there a way we can create some kind of hedge for Nigeria, for the people of Nigeria, against all the debts our governments rack up? Can we get some kind of insurance? Going forward.
Let's understand debt. You see, the amount of debt is not the problem, right? It is what you've done with the debt that you are, if you borrow to go to the casino, then you know your problem. If you borrow to consume, but if you borrow to build assets which increase productivity, then you will have benefits. But it is not a debt, it is a debt service. The debt service this year is 45% of revenue compared to when it was 75%, and it had even gone up to 95%. So directionally, you must give credit to the people who crafted this to say, yes, they want to move in the right direction. Do they have the capacity to move in the right direction? We've got ready and all of that, but we are trying to run a 100-meter dash, but we have weights on our feet. So we got to get rid of those weights that we have tied around our ankles before we can run. You cannot go far or go fast if you don't get rid of those. And those things, whether we like it or not, we have weights on our feet. We must get rid of those things. That's the thing. And in the end, it's budgetary arithmetic, budgetary mathematics and economics is of no use to anybody except when, by this time, 6 months' time, if we are buying rice at 40,000 naira a bag rather than 60,000 naira a bag, if we are buying bread at 900 naira a big loaf instead of 1,300, which we are doing today, if we are buying beans and gari at lower prices, then the people begin to say, the people are not interested in whether the budget is balanced and what the debt is. How does it affect their day-to-day livelihood? That is the key thing. And as you know, prices are up, but also incomes are down. And people are under tremendous pressure. You will notice that on the streets of Lagos in particular, the number of lunatics you see have increased. And part of it driven by poverty.
Right. Mental health issues.
Health issues. People are pushed to the wall.
Incredible impact on mental health.
And you see them all over the place. Some of them walking across the road, even moving traffic, because they've lost hope. So.
All right. So Mr. Rewane, looking at this, it's called the Renewed Hope, appropriation bill. Does it inspire hope for you? Looking at the breakdown.
I think the manifesto of the government this election was Renewed Hope.
Renewed Hope.
So I think that it's that's just a manifesto. It's a nomenclature. It doesn't matter what. Like I said, the most important thing is not hope. Hope is not a strategy, mind you.
Right.
Right. It's So the truth is that people need to feel the impact, and you do not do. The impact is not going to be felt because of 10 or 12% of GDP. That is 27 trillion naira. It has to be more. And where is the more going to come from? The more is going to come from investors. Investors are going to come here when they are sure that one, the money is safe and the environment is clean and things you can look forward to a brighter future. That is work in progress. It's not going to be done like a light switch. We are going to have to see it, right? We have to feel it, and we have to be honest with ourselves. And that's the big thing. Honesty is in short supply.
And at this point, Nigerians seem really giddy, at this time.
Yeah,
they want to see action.
Absolutely.
They want to feel the impact.
You see, one thing you can fake news, but you can't fake prosperity. People cannot start pretending to be happy. It won't take long before the smiles will turn to tears. So
you
have to wipe the tears off people.
And we're definitely watching the breakdown, at this point, where most of these monies are going.
No, Ben Akabezi is Mr. Budget himself. He knows
exactly
the numbers, and you don't have a better set of hands to do that.
Fantastic. We're hoping for the very best. Thank you so much. Always great having your perspective, Mr. Bismarck Rewane, CEO of Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a moment now. When we come back, we'll drill down on the spending direction. That's in a moment. Do stay with us.